Hello, my name is Kurt Borger, and I am the director here at the Riverview Public Library. Today we are interviewing Navy veteran and World War II veteran Carl Danville. Thank you for coming in, Carl.
You're welcome.
Carl, how long have you lived in Riverview?
3 years.
3 years, and you live in King Haven on King Road.
Yes.
Correct. Let me start off at the very beginning. Where and when were you born?
I was born in 1920 in Marilla Township in Michigan.
Can you tell us where Marilla Township is, or where it's close to, so people
It's
have an idea?
northwest of Cadillac, about 15 miles out in the country.
What were your parents' occupations?
My mother died when I was 3, so she had no occupation. My father did bookkeeping, and but then I left and went with my adopted parents, who eventually adopted me. And I was raised by my aunt and uncle in River Rouge.
How many siblings did you have?
I had 5.
5. Were you the youngest or oldest?
I
Where
was
did you
next
fit?
to the youngest.
Next to the youngest. What high school did you attend?
River Rouge,
What year did you graduate?
1938.
You entered the service in 1944. What were you doing between 1938 and 1944?
Went to college and graduated from Albion, then went to work at Pontiac Division of General Motors.
What kind of degree did you get at Albion?
I was majored in chemistry and math, minor in physics.
Let me ask you a little bit about going to college, because not a lot of people went to college at that time. Was it expected that you were going to college, or how did that happen for you?
That's a question that I don't know the answer to, really.
Well, did it
Because I just went to college, so my parents apparently, as you said, it was expected, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I mean, here, I don't remember.
Well, did your siblings go to college?
My oldest brother did. My 2 sisters did, but my the other brothers didn't. So some of us did, and
Okay. You entered the service in 1944. Now, did you enlist or were you drafted?
I was drafted.
Did you try to enlist before?
Yes, I did.
And what happened?
Well, to the story.
Well, I want to hear that story.
Okay. All right. I tried to enlist in the Navy, and the doctor saw in the paper that I had polio, and he asked what effect it had, and I told him it affected my shoulder, and he wrote down there, no good, or wouldn't even let me take the physical. So that was the end of that till I was drafted.
And then what happened when you were drafted? Because you were rejected when you enlisted, and then you were accepted when you were drafted.
You were stark naked in front of 2 doctors. They looked you over and passed me on to a psychologist, I guess. And he asked me a few questions, and he said, oh, you had polio, what did it do? I told him what it did to my shoulder. And he got the biggest grin you ever saw in your life. He says, come on with me. He takes me back to the doctors and says, which one of you 2 examined this guy? Harry is the college now. He's pointing out to them they missed this. And but that I went on down to the examination, and I had to go to several, each step up until I got to the top doctor, or the head doctor there. And he shook hands with me and said I was fine. So, but
When you originally tried to enlist, why did you try to enlist in the Navy?
I suppose because everybody else was, everybody was going. I don't know.
When you pass, well, we should put past the physical in quotes, because shaking somebody's hand, oh, you're good to go, isn't usually usually the standard physical.
They need more warm bodies by this time.
Yes. After you passed the physical, what happened then? What did they assign you to, or where did you go?
Of course, from River Rouge, went downtown to the police there, and they put us on a train to Great Lakes Naval Station outside of Chicago there. And I was there 5 weeks. Well, you know, we had to do things like swimming tests, and we had to do things, but it wasn't severe enough because we played softball after supper. And we got up a team and played, so they didn't work us too hard. Well, we had a good boot pusher who was very good to us, so, you know, he didn't abuse us, you know, and like some of them did, I think. Camp was gonna break up on Monday, and they called me over to the main side on Thursday, and they said, you ever thought of being an officer? I said, well, of course, you know.
Well, you did have a college degree, and
I had college degree,
yeah.
and I was older. I think that made it different. And they said, well, raise your hand. I raised my hand, and went through a lot of exams Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They put me on the train to Plattsburgh, New York, to the officers' training camp there.
And what did you learn there?
Again, to march.
More marching, really?
Instead of parade, you know, and.
Well, I thought there would be more.
We had to learn knots, tying, and, you know, we learned signaling the flags, and a lot of the navigational things they taught us.
Okay, a little bit more technical training there.
Oh, yeah, a lot of stuff that I had no idea of course, you know.
Had you ever been outside of the state of Michigan before this?
No.
No.
I believe it.
Did you know how to swim before you entered the Navy?
I was a very poor swimmer. I was a very poor swimmer. My wife was excellent. My 3 boys were really good swimmers,
But the Navy veteran wasn't?
no.
No.
When I took the naval test before going overseas at Great Lakes, I failed the test, but I went overseas anyway. I could swim, but I couldn't swim, you know.
I couldn't swim well.
Yeah.
You were in New York for further training. Where did you go after that?
Right to Frisco. Was given 10 days to get to San Francisco for shipping overseas. I was there 6 weeks.
You were in San Francisco for 6 weeks?
Yes.
What did you do there?
I had nothing to do except Monday, Wednesday, and Friday report in to see if they had transportation. My wife was with me, and so I reported aboard ship, CVE, small aircraft carrier, for transportation, and
Transportation to where?
well, that's actually ended up in New Guinea, Hollandia, New Guinea, but I didn't know where I was going.
Okay.
And Danville, Nick's name was Russell, for where we're supposed to go and stuff. Boy, that was strange. I got to look at my papers, and there was a date stamped 4 weeks before that to be put aboard, and it was marked out. For some reason, I was taken out of the first group and put in the last group, and we had 6 weeks honeymoon. And so sometimes things work out for you. So anyway, and I ended up in Hollandia, then went to Philippines. So.
You go from San Francisco to New Guinea?
Yes.
And
Well,
then
just a stop off to get. I boarded I was assigned to my ship there at Hollandia.
Oh, in New Guinea?
Yeah, yeah.
You were assigned to what ship?
It's actually, I see on there, it's LCI 71.
Okay, can you tell everybody what LCI stands for?
Landing Craft Infantry. But we were converted to rocket ship, which is not for space, but we had rocket launchers. And
Attached to the landing craft?
To the deck of, yes.
What were your main duties on the landing craft?
Well, I started out as engineering officer, and being only a small ship and small amount of people, I ended up with actually a comm officer, and I ended up well, eventually executive officer, and I was the last commanding officer of the LCI 74. So I started on the 71, but about 6 months later, I was transferred to the 74. So that's why the two. So.
What exactly did you do on those ships?
Well, we go to Lady Gulf and load up and go on a landing and come back and pretty much get reload and go on another. So I tell you, there I was in 8 landings. So that was, I mean, we were kept busy, but we would bombard the beach so that the soldiers would have a clear area that they could get ashore while being blasted. And whoever thought up that idea saved a lot of lives. They were free to get out and get their guns, you know, and get in position, you know, and so forth, without opposition right in their face, right in their face. Yeah, so. But the duties on board were greatly varied because of the size of the ship. We did not have the, I used to say, restrictions of a big ship where you have to be in uniform all the time and everything had to be just so. We pretty much did what we needed to do at the time, you know. So we didn't dress formally at all on board ship. If you went ashore, you had to put on your uniform. But you know, if you'd come aboard, you wouldn't. Chances are you wouldn't know who the officers were from the enlisted men because we're all dressed the same. We just casually. And obviously, it's warm out there. You don't need a lot of clothes, and they kept us busy. They kept us busy, I'll tell you that.
You were an engineer on these ships?
Well, yeah, I was the engineering officer, and I had a chief who really knew his stuff. He'd been out there 3 years, and he took me by the hand and showed me the ropes, and he and I got along well. We'd take a little dinghy and there's a supply ship come in and he and I'd go get parts, and you know, we'd sit out on the fantail, him and I, many nights, you know. And so I was very lucky that I had a very cooperative, he taught me to take an injector apart, frontwards and backwards, and so forth. So.
Let me go back to what these landing craft did. You said they hold about 35 soldiers or Marines, correct?
Soldiers.
Soldiers,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, sometimes.
A Marine wouldn't ride on our little boat.
Oh, they wouldn't?
Okay. I don't know.
But it was Army mostly for.
They carried Army before I was there. They carried Army. Then it was converted to this.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm trying to clarify. So at first there was a landing craft where you would transport the soldiers to the beach or wherever the landing zone was.
The bow was flat, so they could go up on the beach. Now they usually had to wait, from pictures I've seen, they had to wait a few feet, but they couldn't, you know, they couldn't get out on the dry land. But they got into where it was very shallow.
Then what you're saying is it was converted to, they put ordnance on there, they actually put like rocket launchers, something
That's
like that on there. How, were they on the sides of the
Yes.
ship?
Down both sides. There was 11 launchers all down the side. And they each contained 10 rockets.
What millimeter were they, do you remember?
They were 4.8 inch rockets. On a 5-inch shell.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Now I know what size they were. you were in 6 operations or 6 landings.
Actually 8. But
8, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, that's what you put down in my math. Is there any one of those 8 that sticks out in particular in your memory?
Probably one of the smaller ones, but in Ormoc, when we landed at Ormoc, we had
Where's Ormoc?
in the Philippines.
In the Philippines, okay.
It's actually
Because the Philippines has like hundreds of islands, yes.
5,000, I think,
Yes.
but only a few of them are inhabitable. But the island had been pretty well taken, but Ormoc was like 40 miles from Tacloban, where was the original landing. And they just couldn't get to, somehow with the terrain or whatever, they couldn't get to it, so we took the 77th Division all the way around the island and landed them there. And we had a man named Spencer, his last name was Spencer, from the Associated Press with us. And he wrote up a little story about, sent to the River Rouge, to all, for everybody, to all to their hometown papers, which was nice. And he was a really nice guy, and we enjoyed having him on there. But he only wanted one run. His job was to go once, and he was happy. But he didn't want to go again.
Now, in these 8 landings, did you encounter any enemy opposition?
Very little, but some of our other ships did get shelled. We were at Langate Gulf. We were stationed over in a certain area, and I had the midnight watch, and there comes a explosion here, explosion over here. I said, "Hey, we're getting out of here." We pulled a hamper. Obviously, mortar from the shore was were trying to center on us. We got out of there before, thank goodness for that. But, the ship had been hit before I was on there, but we never were hit while I was on there. They did take some damage previous. And, because, again, landing troops, they have to go right up to the shore. They have to stay there a while to get the troops up. And that's when I think they probably got hit, They're a stationary
Target.
Target now, yeah.
Let's go through the since it's a small ship, you have to load up the soldiers from a troop transport, or how does that work?
I was never involved in that.
Okay.
I don't know how they did it. I don't know, I have any idea how but they would put 140 some soldiers on there. A very, not too big an area. And so the soldiers, I think, were happy to go ashore. You take 5 days, 6 days down in the ship.
Oh, one of those troop transports.
Yeah, and when it was a transport, yeah. And, as they say, I didn't experience that part of it, so. Which I think I'm happy for, because I don't think that was, but it had to be done,
Right. Did you ever get any leave or any time off while you were stationed overseas?
No, I
No.
no leave. We just one operation right after another, and then when the war was over, we were at Subic Bay, and that's in the Philippines, and we were sent to Okinawa, and the big storm, a typhoon hit there, and just tore everything up, and we were in a group of 12, and 6 of them were damaged. None of them were sunk, but they were damaged. We had orders to go up the Yangtze River, patrol the Yangtze River.
In China.
Yeah, and, Navy says, well, you only got 6 shifts left, you can go home. So obviously we hightailed it out of there before they changed their mind, and came back to the San Pedro Naval Station outside of LA and decommissioned the ship there. And,
Now, these landing craft, do you sail the landing craft all the way from Okinawa all the way back to California?
yeah, that's the description of a ship in the
Right.
Navy. If it's called a ship, it's self-sufficient. It can go, you know, if you have to put it or tow it, it's a boat. That's-
Okay,
that's the
there we go, get the
that's
differentiation
definition,
from.
Yeah, and, yeah, the 6 of us went to, back to the Philippines, reloaded, got fuel, and then went to Eniwetok, then to Pearl, and then to San Diego, from San Diego to San Pedro, because they were full. They kicked us out of San Diego, and that's another story. Is we got stopped in the Philippines, and they came aboard. And was it not an immigration, but what do you call it when you come ashore? I can't think of the word. Anyway, they came aboard and checked us out. They said, "Where do you know, where's you're going, you know, in the United States?" I put San Diego. A day later, this thing comes back with little big red marks. You entered the United States in Honolulu. Oh, I didn't know. So then we go 2,000 miles, and they come aboard and check us. They said, "Where did you pass?" And we said, "Yes," and we're landing in the Philippines, and he said, "Okay, I left." We'd gone 2,000 miles. So some things don't quite add up.
Makes sense. Understood. A lot of veterans tell me that the military doesn't make sense, at least in the decisions that are made. At all these places that you stopped at, were you able to, I don't know, look around, meet some of the natives or anything like that?
Very little, some, yes, but mainly to go, maybe for supplies or something. Never. We didn't
Have a lot of interaction with
no,
the
no,
native
no,
peoples?
no, no.
You get back to San Pedro in Los Angeles, but this is 1945?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, yeah, December 23rd, I think.
Of 1945?
Yeah, 45,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, because the war ended in
Yeah,
August.
Yeah.
And you told me before in the pre-interview that you were kind of discharged, but kind of not. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, after the decommissioning the ship, reporting to the base there, I had no leave at all, and they gave me a 30-day overseas leave, and I reported back to Great Lakes, and I had enough points to get out of the active service, and so that was March 29th of 1946. Yeah. So went back to work.
Where did you go back to work at?
Pontiac, where I had left, and they had a job for me. My stable job.
We'll get back to your post-work career in a second. Though I do want to ask you. You said you were before you would enter the service. You were married. Where did you meet your wife?
At Albion School.
Oh, you met her at college.
Yes. Yeah. She was a freshman my junior year. I was a freshman. I mean, I was a junior, and she was.
Right. And I'm assuming that you kept in contact by letters. Were you a good letter writer?
Well, I don't know about that.
Was she?
Yeah, she did good, she did well. Of course, she went to all the USO dances, you know, with her cousin, she says.
Did you write anybody else besides your wife?
All my parents, yeah. That's all I remember. I read a lot of letters because at one time I had to censor the mail.
So I'm guessing you come back home in 1946, right?
Yeah, well,
When you're finally back home in
Yeah,
1946.
March 29th, 46, I came back to Chicago. Was out.
Well, 95, and then that turns into 46.
Yeah.
You worked for Pontiac. What were you doing in Pontiac?
I was chemist in a chem lab.
For how many years were you there?
Between 3 and 4. Somebody told me if you're going to be in chemistry that you should not be with a company whose business is making cars. You're a necessary expense. You're not producing anything. So I went with the resin company, polyesters, and that was amazing. My career from then on was involved with polyester resin, boat companies, of course.
You mentioned you started your own business here in Riverview.
Yeah.
What was the name of the business?
The company was DBF. It originally was Detroit Body Filler, and that's what we started out making, was body filler. Well, then we expanded into other things, and the name no longer fit because we're not just body fillers. So we struggled with that, what to do, and we finally decided, well, let's just call it DBF. That solved the problem. It still exists. My son runs it now. So.
Is it still in Riverview?
Oh yeah, right.
On what streets?
On Kraus, right next to the.
Oh, okay.
The Public Works.
DPW.
Yeah, DPW, yeah, right next to. In fact, the buildings are identical. Their building and our originally somewhere they were, when they were first built, they were built exactly alike. I don't know. Yeah. We had good relations with them, and we had no problems.
After the war, where did you said you worked for Pontiac? Where did you live?
I lived in Pontiac.
You lived in Pontiac,
Yeah.
and then you started a business in Riverview.
Well, there were some years
Well,
in between.
I understand that. Did you live in Riverview, or where did you live?
Lived in Trenton, at Turner and Parr, if you know, anybody knows where that is. And we lived there 30 years. We liked it there, of course, obviously. We stayed there.
How many children do you have, Carl?
I have 3 boys. We were lucky. We had all boys. That'll get censored.
No, it won't get censored. No. Are they still? Do they live in the area?
And one lives right across from South Shore Hospital. One lives in Grosse Ile, and one lives in Canton Township.
So they're all in the area.
They're all in the area.
Did any of them serve in the military?
No.
No.
One was up. His number was up, and the war ended.
Oh, you mean Vietnam?
Yeah, Western Vietnam. Yeah.
Did any of your siblings?
My brother was in the Army for 5 years.
Was this during the war or after
During the war. He didn't listen. I thought he was crazy.
Just the one brother that was in the military?
Yes.
How many grandchildren do you have, Carl?
13.
13. Can you name them all? I'm not gonna make you.
It'd take me a while.
I'm not
Don't
gonna-
ask me how many great-grandchildren.
Oh, okay. Well, how many great grandchildren do you have?
At 20, I stopped counting.
a 20, stop counting. Okay, I'm not gonna even bother to ask you.
No, I can't. Yeah.
When you came from Bedford, you had a job waiting for you, which,
That was-
from the interviews I've had, not everybody had.
Not everybody.
I'm going to assume the transition from military life to civilian life was fairly easy for you. Would you say that's a correct assumption?
No problem at all, I had no problem at all.
Do you say,
Partly because my board ship experience was not strictly Navy, it wasn't strictly military. As I said, we were more relaxed because we were a small ship, and no big officer come around to a little ship like ours. So we had a more.
So it was less formal and
Yeah,
less.
so it wasn't, you didn't go from having to wear uniform every day and salute and all that sort of thing, that the military does.
Everybody had a job to do, and there was really no senior grade officer looking over your shoulder all
You
the
could come
time.
aboard and you see a group talking and you couldn't tell which one was an officer and which one was a enlisted man. Because we just were very relaxed. I heard reports that Washington was unhappy with the amphibs, which is really the part we were
Right.
in. And because we went outdoors and opened windows, and we didn't open a port, we opened the window, and there was some unhappiness about that. But it never got down to it. It never got to it.
Never got down to you.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, the
Mhm.
amphibs, never got to that. And we were obviously different from the real Navy, if you want to put it that way, We were obviously USNR.
Did you stay in contact with the people that you knew from your military experience?
We were not supposed to keep any records, and I didn't. I'm sorry I didn't, because I've tried to look up some people.
Why weren't you supposed to keep any records?
Because they'd fall in the hands of the enemy.
Oh, at that time, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And of course, obviously, I had I could have had everybody's address, but I followed orders and didn't keep any, and I'm sorry I didn't. Well, as I spoke with the chief, and I would love to make contact with him after the war. He left the ship probably a year before the war ended. He had 3.5 years out there, and so I had no way of contacting him. Because he was a good guy. He was from Cleveland, so I could have.
Mhm. Did you belong to any, or do you belong to any veterans organizations?
No.
If there's one thing you would want to tell people about your service during World War II, or what would be like the most important thing that you learned from the service, what would you like to tell the people that are watching?
I got home safe. That's the most.
Well, yes, of course. I mean, how did it impact your life? How, or if it did at all?
In the last few years, I was thinking about it, and I was amazed. I was gone 1.5 years, just married, and when I came back, we didn't have any problems. So that's probably the best thing that I could tell you, is that life went on, just, we got back together, and everything was fine.
So it was just like a 1.5 year interruption
It was
to
gone.
your life.
Yeah, it was gone, yeah. And that's a long time to be separated from, and not have, you're changed. You can't tell me 1.5 years on board a ship with all men didn't change me some.
Well, how do you think it changed you?
Well, one thing, you had to be careful with your language. The language on board the ship, that language wasn't too, and I don't know. Apparently, maybe it didn't, because we didn't have it, and, but I was just, to me, that's amazing that we got back together and found a place to rent for, that's all you could do after the war, you know. Eventually, then got our own house and we rented this little house up in Pontiac, and it was furnished, very small, and in 1947, I bought a piano. That was the first piece of furniture we bought. And I'm amazed that she talked me into a piano. Now, she played piano and organ, played other instruments, but she was very musical, but I'm still amazed that, you know.
Did your wife work, or did she
Yes.
stay home with your children, or?
Well, both. She worked until we had our first child, and
Where did she work at?
she was working at the office of General Motors coach. There's a lot of numbers. She had 3 bosses, and they would go out in the field, do some
Statistics? Yes.
and send it back to her, and she had to take it all up. And then she didn't finish college. She left Alabama, went to Michigan for a year, but didn't finish. And so when our boys were, you know, old enough that I could handle them, she started back to Wayne. And then we moved several times, and she went to college each place, and eventually, when she was about 45, she graduated from IPSI.
Oh, at Eastern?
Eastern.
Right.
It's IPSI to me. And then she taught school for about 10 years here in Michigan and in Ohio, because I moved to Ohio. We moved to Ohio. And that was her work. She did. Well, after she retired from teaching, she went into real estate. And she did quite well for, you know, for a first year person, and second year. Then we moved back up to Michigan, and she had a license both in Michigan and Ohio, because in Ohio, in Toledo, you're not very far from Michigan.
Yeah.
And she did. At that point, she didn't need the job, and she was obviously near retirement age, and so she never let, when she came back to Michigan, that was the end of her work. But yeah, she was a good school teacher. Everybody tells me that. So
Well, Mr. Danville, is there anything else?
I
you'd like to tell you?
I think
you got everything? Okay. All right, Mr. Danville, thank you for coming in today, and thank you for your service to our country. I appreciate it.